rather than.
I mean, I know what you're saying. I was kind of thinking along the same lines. It's like this play isn't like, it's not traditional in the sense that it's not driven by like a plot or like a rising and falling action and all that. There's not that much that actually goes on. It's just, okay, talking to this maid. And so, in light of that, to keep the dialogue, genuine and natural, to have the stage directions in character probably help.
And really quick, and also, obviously I don't know what the situation was like when this play was being written, but the stage directions written that way kind of make me feel like it was just very natural for her to write it so quickly, and it was just like something that kind of like a spiritual experience instead of like sitting there planning out like every word and like every single thing like perfectly. I think it was just more of like a spiritual experience, kind of just like letting something out, and it was like really cool.
That's real. You kidding?
Who hasn't asked a question?
What?
Oh, I'll ask a question.
I have a good one.
How does?
Go.
No, my questions are bad.
Okay. Okay. Well, this is like about the documentary, but I said, why do you think Ray always changed his job and location, like before killing? I'm okay.
The people, the experts who talked about his life throughout the documentary, at that point when he first broke out of prison, they were talking about how he was kind of searching for a purpose in life. So he was trying out bartending and like a lot of other different. What?
He wanted to try porn.
I don't think he wanted to be a porn actor. He was trying to get into the business to make money. Yeah. He tried
It's like, yeah, I'm down for that.
for the first time.
That's the one comment Jack says, of course.
I mean, the one who's actually
Get
porn.
naked.
No, but like he was trying a lot of different jobs, and the way the guy explained it was that he was kind of like, he didn't really know what he was doing, because I mean, he got out of prison and he wanted to be famous and known, but that didn't happen, and so he was just trying to find a direction in life at that point. I think.
Yeah, I agree.
And also, he was like, it was just like a fugitive. That's like what the natural thing to do is if you're on the run. That too. If you're on the run, you just get in the business.
It said it in the documentary. Yeah, this should.
That's on tape, though.
I guess I'll ask a question now. Then. This is back to the play, and it's kind of specific, but I was kind of wondering what, like, because you know how Keme gets on Dr. King's jacket and starts making that like huge speech, how we tired of walking, all that, and so then, but like we find out later, I think that she's an angel, and so so that speech then becomes like a message from the heavens, kind of like, what do you think is the significance of that?
Wow. That's deep. You just give.
I like that. That's an interesting way to put it, but the whole point of the play is to like show that nobody's perfect. Or I thought that nobody's perfect, like even angels, if that makes sense, because just the day before she was in an alley like selling her body. So it's, you can take it and say that it's like it is literally coming from above if she's an angel, and like it's coming from heaven, but I think it was just like showing that like you like it's not as far like fetched as what you said. I don't know, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I know.
Have a
Yeah. Well, I think it was Jordan that said it in the last one, how she tries to portray Kemi as being more human by giving her some flaws, like she cusses in front of Martin Luther King and stuff like that. So I was thinking, like, maybe the thing about the night before she was selling herself, if she's an angel, that necessarily doesn't have to be what was actually happening. Like, she could have just kind of said that to portray herself as being more human-like again. And in Michael's thing, maybe she's trying to like show Martin Luther King, like it's a message to show him what actually he should be doing again. Like her speech is more about civil rights again, and he like telling him mostly to go back to what he used to do instead of doing this Poor People's March and stuff like that.
I mean, I guess it's interesting that she knows he's gonna die, and she's still preaching. She knows he's not ever gonna go out and do anything she says. So, I guess it seems like it's not less of like a message from love as far as trying to actually like guide what he does, but just kind of her having conversation with Dr. King and just trying to, tell her what her take on the issue is, and let out her feelings.
Ask your question.
And we'll make this the last one so we can give the comments to people. Okay.
Well, so like on the documentary, do y'all think that it did MLK justice, or does it focus on like James Earl Ray too much?
I mean, I guess, it focused on James Earl Ray a lot, and they mentioned last time that it was kind of ironic because at the beginning they said, they don't want to focus on James Earl Ray, they want to focus on King, not to glorify him, but at the same time it was like, by the end you knew the documentary was the documentary about how King died, basically. So, I mean, they kind of had to go through all that stuff to just portray the interesting story of how it happened.
And mostly, like, since it's about the play, you have to kind of show both sides of it on how the planning to his murder happens and what was going on at the time. So I think they might have gotten carried away, showing out how the planning works out, and then just like ending up focusing a little bit more on Ray than they would want to.
I think it definitely did MLK justice because it still portrayed him as pretty much like a martyr for his cause, and like everyone nowadays agrees with the cause, so it definitely like made him look good.
I guess one interesting thing that like focusing on Ray does is that it makes it like, because they tell so much of the personal story, which they try to say it's not really about Ray, it was just Ray didn't kill him, the times killed him, the events killed him, but I don't really buy that because he was doing the same thing for years and no one killed him. So it seems like, I mean, maybe if Ray hadn't been there, sure, he would have been killed eventually, but he would have died 5 years later or something, and it just kind of shows you how arbitrary sometimes life is, that because this one guy happened to hate him and happened to be a criminal and get out of jail and do all this stuff, he died that day instead of later.
Give them a hand!
I like the comment that Gil said about how it was interesting how she talked about the issues even though she knew he was going to die, because that's like what was the most important to him.
I liked the comment where I think Michael said something how it's not driven by a plot, because I'd never thought of it that way.
I liked when Paul was talking about like fighting for the rights and fighting to like put on a play and stuff.
I like Paul's question about Beyonce and God.
Yeah, that was my favorite too.
I agree.
I wrote God and Beyonce on my sheet of paper.
Next to the Beyonce comment, I also liked what Paul said about how the play was like a spiritual release and like kind of like helping Katori release something.
I like how Michael talked about how Kume's speech could be like a message from heaven, just because he went back and looked through the chapters, like now that he knew Kume was an angel, to just view everything from a different perspective.
I like Paul's connection, to the song, like we didn't start the fire, and saying like how they're standing up for what they believe in and stuff like that.
I liked what Gil just said about like the whole thing showing how arbitrary life is, like this specific situation happened because of all these crazy details and stuff.
I liked I liked what Gil said when he was talking about how you can't necessarily control like when you die, but MLK, like he can control what he was fighting for when he died.
Yeah, and I like the discussion about whether or not MLK knew if he was gonna die or like, I don't know. They were talking about how that he like, because he fights so much for his rights, that he knows that like there is gonna be an end to it someday.
How we doing? Was it successful?
Yeah.
She said yes.
Success. She said yes.
Yep.
All right.
Sick.
Nisha got asked.